New stuff here on Sporty Monday. Today we take a deep dive into what's ailing Kenyan football. Our very own Steve Shitera took time to talk to the stakeholders, some of them legends of Gor Mahia and AFC Leopards, and we'll be unpacking that story for us. We also go deep into the anti-doping fight and what budgetary cuts could mean in the campaign against the vice. Swilla's Shot will be tackling that. In England, it's a battle royale as the race for the EPL shapes up. Not to forget the German Bundesliga, where, of course, the champions Bayern Munich hit 5, sending a strong message to the title rivals. In our quickfire segment, we put all the hard questions to one Sami Kempes Owino. Sporty Monday begins, but first things first, we look at how the Kenyan football has always been. But let's take a look at the question of the day. And today we are asking you, do you think Kenya can win the war on doping with the budget cut that was made? Can Kenya win the war against doping following the budgetary cut meant for ADAC? We want to hear from you. 22422, hashtag Sporty Monday. And of course, we are also on Facebook, where you can engage us, on Citizen TV, and on X, you can also engage us at Isaac Swilla, at Citizen TV, at Jacob is here, at Steve Shitera. And of course, we will be sampling some of your feedback during and at the tail end of this program. Now to our top story. Kenyan Premier League record champions Gor Mahia have been tossed out of the 2024 CAF Champions League 6-0 on aggregate after falling 0-3 to Egyptian powerhouse Al Ahly in the second leg preliminary fixture staged in Cairo at the weekend. The outcome completes the now too familiar and predictable script of Kenyan clubs being bundled out of Africa's Premier Championship at the preliminaries. This is in stark contrast to the golden years gone by of the 1970s and 80s, where Kogalo and even AFC Leopards would go head-to-head with the continent's best. In 1987, Kogalo, under the stewardship of coach Jack Jackson, Aden, swept all before them to bag the Nelson Mandela Cup, now renamed CAF Confederations Cup. But with a plethora of talent back then and the good run in Africa, the million-dollar question abound. What went wrong? Where did the rain start beating us? Steve Shitera took time to speak to the legends and now walks us down memory lane in this special report.
The
last time a Kenyan football club put up a competitive fight at the continental stage was in 2019 when Gor Mahia reached the CAF Confederation Cup quarterfinals.
لحمدي العشير مع أوتشان قد توسيع مع العشير في كرة باكر الهلالي الثاني goal.
But suffered a 7-1 aggregate defeat in the hands of RS Berkane of Morocco. After losing 2-0 at home at the Nyayo National Stadium and falling 5-1 in Berkane, Morocco.
Aziz, the captain.
Gor Mahia's preparations were in disarray, with the team arriving in Berkane barely an hour before kickoff after being stranded at the Hamad International Airport in Doha, Qatar for hours, setting the stage for an inevitable thrashing, and indeed they received a dose of their own medicine.
Equalizer by Juma.
Kenyan football fans often look back with nostalgia to Gor Mahia's golden era.
Piga kona maridadi kweli kweli, dao kichwa goal!
Particularly their historic victory in 1987 under the stewardship of Danish coach Jack Jackson.
We started with Marine Somalia, 2-0 in Somalia, 7-0 at City Stadium. We went to Sudan, El Merreikh. We drew 1-1 in Sudan, return leg in Kisumu, 0-0. Then we went to quarters. Entente Setif from Lome, Togo. We beat them 3-1 at Nyayo. We drew 0-0 in Togo. We drew 0-0 in Benin. Nyayo National Stadium, we beat them 3-2. The finals, we drew 2-2 in Tunisia, where that was the only game that Esperance drew at home. Then we drew 1-1 again at Kasarani. We were the champions, unbeaten. And that 87, we won Standard Super Cup, we won the league, we won Mandela. 3 trophies.
The kind of players that we had prior to, say, 1987 were a product of systematic, progression from, established structures. For instance, the then Youth Olympic Centers, because it's from the Olympic Centers, we more or less had what I can call a national football philosophy.
In this heroic season, Kogalo engraved their names into the African football books, clinching the Cup Winners' Cup, popularly known as the Nelson Mandela Cup, now renamed the CAF Confederation Cup, after a 2-2 draw with Tunisia's Esperance in Tunis, Tunisia,
Nelson Mandela Cup,
and a 1-1 draw at the packed Moi International Sports Center, Kasarani, making for a 3-3 aggregate tie to win on away goal rule. On that energetic afternoon, at a packed Kasarani, the late President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi was among the spectators as the roofs came down.
The president came to Kasarani, and that was a plus to Kenyan fraternity that they are behind the team. President Moi, the late, loved sports, and that's why he could once in a while attend to sports, especially the 2 big clubs, because he was trying to find out why are these 2 teams glued.
In the gallant squad of the 1987 that conquered Africa were David Ochieng Kamoga, George Solo, Jaffa Mwidao, Tobias Juakali Ochola, Peter Basanga Otieno, Austin Makamo Duor, Abbas Magongo, Anthony Ndolo, Isaiah Omondi, George Fundi Onyango, Peter Dao, Charles Otieno, Sam Onyango, and William Obwaka. Key to this impressive run was good preparations, with Coach Jackson taking the team to his native country, Denmark, for a boot camp through his own arrangements.
When I started playing on the February 18th, 1986, I found a very formidable side in Gor Mahia.
Equally, a good number of the squad members were also in the Harambee Stars squad that had gone to train in Germany, thanks to the late coach Renard Fabish, in preparation for the 1987 All-Africa Games. However, as time went by, Gor Mahia's performances nosedived, and so was the attendance of matches in the Kenyan Premier League, as disillusioned fans turned away from the beautiful game, citing declining standards.
Football was fanatic, and the fans were thronging the stadiums in numbers. I believe because of the quality that were there, and then the rivalry between the domestic teams, Gor Mahia and Leopards.
Players were considered to be a passion. Haikuwa na story kuhusu pesa nini, watu wacheza juu ya passion. Na saizi ukiweka passion, na saizi football imekuwa like an industry ya kazi. People are being paid, so kama kuna pesa kwa football saizi, then utapata kuna competition.
The government supported soccer because most of us were employed in the parastatals, Posta, Airways, Railways, and the Kikoso games were also very, very, very competitive.
Despite 13 appearances in Africa's top club competition, Kogalo have only reached the quarterfinals 3 times. The closest Kenya came to bagging a continental glory in the last 3 decades was in 1994, when Tusker, then Kenya Breweries, fell to Motema Pembe of DRC in a CAF Cup final. AFC Leopards, the 12-time KPL champions and one of Kenya's most decorated clubs, have also failed to make an impact on the continental scene. Their once fierce rivalry with Gor Mahia is now a relic, with both clubs struggling to recapture their lost glory.
People are just competing for your trophy ya Premier League. There's no award. Mnashinda Premier League, mnapewa sijui milioni 3, sijui milioni 5, which actually doesn't cater for the team. So teams zote zikicheza, they're not actually fighting for something. Hawapiganii kitu, unaona?
It's how many years since FC was formed and Gor Mahia? We are always begging for playing grounds. We don't know. We don't have this. We don't have that. When we don't have the money, we run to the government, especially when we're going outside the country. Those teams outside, especially in the North and West Africa, they have a way of generating funds, even through merchandise. Yanga and Simba down here are doing it. Why don't we just copy them? Be humble enough.
The coming on board of the Kenya Premier League Limited to run and manage the league in 2010 seemed to offer a ray of hope, restoring semblance of order.
We sought an authority, sat down with FIFA. We can remember the famous 28 Cairo point agreement, which was signed, and it gave the clubs the authority to form themselves into a company, and that's how we got ourselves with the Kenya Premier League.
The KPL's peak came in 2010 with a 1 billion Kenya shillings broadcast deal that thrust Kenyan football into international limelight.
We sent some members to go and benchmark on how PSL, down in South Africa, were doing their stuff of super sports, because we got to know that we could syndicate our media rights, and of course exploit them at a fee. And as broadcasting partners, the amount of money that they were disbursing to the clubs in exchange of the rights made the clubs to be a little bit financially stable. I do remember very well having moved across to bring in some of the top talents, the Jack Tuisenges, the Auchos, the Baba Kizitos, the Kageres, the Walusimbis, and the rest. And so are the other clubs.
However, this momentum was short-lived, with the deal ending in 2017 on a sour note. And as the infights reached a crescendo, so did Kenyan football hit rock bottom.
Simba nguvu moya!
As neighbors Tanzania opted for the overtaking lane.
When we were playing, Tanzania were coming into Kenya to look for what Gor Mahia and FC were doing. Nowadays,
Even last time they went and played in Tanzania in the Sekafa, there was no Yanga, there was no Simba, and Gor could not even go past the first round. From that moment, I knew that even in the continental games, they're going to have it rough. And it showed.
That we cannot match the two teams that 4 years down the line were minnows to us.
But as Kenyan football continues to flounder, the upcoming FKF elections are pivotal.
But we need good people to run the clubs, run the federation, and run the ministry, so that the interest of footballers are taken care of.
The next FKF boss will face a Herculean task of steering Kenyan club football back to the light, seeking a long lost glory. Steve Shitera for Sporty Monday, Nairobi.